All right, we are going to move into 9.6, day 2, slope-intercept form. So we are going to learn the third and final way that we are going to learn in this class of how to graph a line. All right, I will remind you that you can graph a line using an XY chart. You can graph a line using the intercepts form or the third way slope-intercept form. Tomorrow and tomorrow, we are going to review all three types of graphing, but for today, let's learn about slope-intercept form. So our goal for today is I can graph a linear equation using slope-intercept form. Now, you see slope-intercept form here. For this to be in slope-intercept form, you must have y on a side by itself. So if y is not on a side by itself, you have to solve for it. And then you'll notice there's a number being multiplied to x. That is the slope. You should see that m there and be familiar with that. All right, so whatever number is being multiplied to x is your slope, and whatever number is a constant, you guys notice here it's plus, it could be minus if it's negative, is the y-intercept, okay? So with that in mind, we will then graph. Now we have these steps to graph, and we'll use those to help us as we move through this first problem. So first of all, step 1, when we're in slope-intercept form, is to solve the equation for y. Is y on a side by itself? And we would say, yes, it is. So we're good to go with step 1. Step 2, identify the slope in y-intercept. Slope is the number being multiplied to x. Well, what is being multiplied to x here? And the correct answer would be 3. So go ahead and fill that in. I've kind of structured this for you to follow along. And then we're going to also find the y-intercept. This b right here is the y-intercept. So when we look at the b here, the constant, it is -5. Now, quickly, in a y-intercept, we know, what about a y-intercept? We know one of the values is 0, and in a y-intercept, it is the x, right? So when we look down here, the y-intercept x is 0, that means that the y is -5. So we have this point. Okay, so that's step 2. Identify the slope and the y-intercept. Just a quick review. Slope, we said, was the number being multiplied to x, and that was 3. And then the y-intercept is the constant over here. So in this case, -5. And we know when we have a y-intercept that the x is 0, and now this is our y value. And we can write this as 0b, so whatever that constant is, you'll just fill in with it in that ordered pair. All right, step 3, plot the y-intercept. Okay, so take this point, 0, -5, and we're going to plot it. Okay, check that off the list. Let's move on to step 4. Change slope to fraction form. So if it's a whole number, and it won't always be, but in this case it is, change it to a fraction. Now, if it's not in a fraction form, what means the same thing as 3? 3 over what? 3 over 1, hopefully you said. 3 over 1. Okay, so step 4 is off the list. Step 5, from the y-intercept, use rise and run to graph other points on the line. And here's what that means. The slope is 3 over 1. That means 3 is the rise, right? That's on the y-axis, and 1 is the run. So here's what that means. You take your y-intercept, okay, so from the y-intercept, use rise and run. So this says from the y-intercept, rise 3. So from this, we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, run 1. So that means to the right 1. And if it helps you to write the arrow, since it's positive, it's up 3. And since this is positive, it's right 1. So up 3, 1 right. We can do the same thing again. 1, 2, 3, up 3 over 1. Up 3 over 1. And we can see it's following that slope there. Now go ahead and grab a straight edge. I don't have one here, so we'll just... Yours is going to be neater than mine. Draw that straight line in, arrows on both ends. And we have our line. If you were unsure of if you did this correctly, you could use an XY chart. And I'm going to do that with you right now just so you remember how to do it, and you have that tool in your back pocket. Okay, so let's set up an XY chart. You guys already know how to do this. I want to show you that you have the tools to do this other ways to check your work and make sure you're understanding. So I'm going to choose some really simple x's as much as possible. So let's choose 0, and let's choose 1, and let's choose 2. I'm kind of choosing some that I know will fit on my graph. So 0 times, now we're going to plug 0 in for x here, so we have y equals 3 times 0 minus 5. So this just goes away, right? So when x is 0, y is negative 5. All right, let's plug 1 in. If we plug 1 in here, we have y equals 3, and instead of x, we're putting 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 1 is negative 2. So y equals negative 2. So when x is 1, y is negative 2. If we plug 2 in here, we'll do that down here. So we have y equals 3, and instead of x, 2 minus 5. 3 times 2 is 6 minus 5 is 1. So y equals 1. So when x is 2, y is 1. All right, let's see if these fit on our line. 0, negative 5. Now that's actually our y-intercept, right? 0, negative 5. So yeah, that works. 1, negative 2. Yes, that's a point on our line. Then the third point we have here is 2, 1. Over 2, up 1. Yes, that's also a point on our line. And as long as they fall within the line, even if they're not the exact points that we make, they are on the line and we have the line graphed correctly. Okay, so we've actually graphed this line twice, or we've looked at 2 methods to graph it. Okay, so know that you have the XY chart as a backup to check your work. Moving on to our second example. Again, if you do not have a printer, you can use notebook paper. You're probably just gonna have to pause to catch up. So first step is to make sure y is by itself. All right, and in this case, y is by itself. All right, and make sure you're looking back in those notes to see the steps. So y is by itself. Identify the slope and y-intercept. The number being multiplied to x is our slope, 1/2, and the y-intercept is that constant. Remember, in a y-intercept, the x value is 0, so that means this 3 goes here. The third step is to plot the y-intercept, 0, 3. So 0, 3. Okay. Step 4, change slope to fraction form. We look at the slope, already in fraction form. We move to step 5. Now this is the part where most students struggle. You find your y-intercept, and from there you implement your slope. If it helps you, write off to the side, write it bigger, and you can think of this as one rise, 2 runs. Okay, so we're gonna go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. Okay, and we could keep going. We can also go in the opposite direction. If we go, instead of up 1 over 2, we can also go down 1, back 2. And we notice that's lining up, down 1, back 2, okay? It's lining up. Use your straight edge. Draw that line in, straighter than mine, arrows on both ends. And we have the line graphed. Again, you could set up an XY chart to double check that you are graphing this line correctly. All right, moving to example... doesn't have a number. Example 3. Okay, is y by itself? Check. Second question or second step, you can look back at the notes, just follow those steps exactly. When I'm with you, we can kind of go a little more all over the place, but if in doubt, use those steps exactly. Step 2, identify the slope and y-intercept. We see the x. Now there is no number that we can see being multiplied to it. If that is the case, what is the coefficient of a variable if you cannot see it? And I hope you guys are saying, we should know this, it is 1. All right, then from there, so we're gonna write that down here, slope is 1. Our y-intercept is that constant and it's positive, so positive 3. If we write that as a point, we know x is 0, 3 is the y value. Okay, and then we are going to move to step number 3, which is plot that y-intercept, so 0, 3, all right. Step 4, change slope to fraction form. 1 means the same thing as what? 1 over 1, right? So it's gonna be up 1 over 1. And all of these slopes in these examples have been positive. We can have negative slopes too, but we're not looking at that today. So up 1 over 1, all right? So up 1, rise 1, run 1. That's a tongue twister, so we'll see if I can hold it together. Rise 1, run 1, and we can continue. We can see what's happening here. We can also go down 1, back 1, and we can continue on in both directions. But we see that line forming. As long as you have at least 3 points, go ahead and connect it with a straight line, arrows on both ends, and we have graphed example 3. All right, so examples 1, 2, and 3 are complete, and we are... All right, and that's a wrap on our lesson for Thursday. So you will be able to find the homework there. Again, if you don't have a printer, you'll have to draw those coordinate planes and then take a picture and send it to me. If you don't have capabilities to take pictures, let me know. You still need to be doing the assignment, and then we'll figure out how you can do that. You could use a scanner as well if that's an option, but we'll talk about that if that is an issue. So make sure you email me if you are having those issues. We are making it to our last day of the week tomorrow. Tomorrow there will be no video lesson. We're not going to learn anything new tomorrow. You're going to receive an assignment that reviews the 3 methods of graphing. Okay, so you will be able to find that. That's the only thing you'll get tomorrow is just that worksheet. And you'll be able to do those problems again. If you don't have a printer, you can use notebook paper instead. And that will wrap up our week. This is your last new thing that you're going to learn this week. And I'll see you later. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.